Hey everyone, this is Cameron, the co host and editor of Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to us. Whether it's Spotify or Pandora or wherever, we are where podcasts can be found. If you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way we can keep doing what we love, and that's talking about, the good old city of Arlen and King of the Hill and other shows in the wild world of animation. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And yes, today we are talking about the latest season of King of the Hill. And yes, I did say season because, similar to Futurama, this is not necessarily a reboot. This is just season 14, which I think is honestly pretty cool.
I do love the fact that we can now say King of the Hill, the greatest anime ever made, got a time skip series. It is the Naruto Shippuden of anime series follow-ups. Because out of all the revivals that have come out recently, and I am shocked that only maybe 2 shows have actually done the thing that you should do with a revival, age the characters up. I think the only other one is the Proud Family.
And even that is like a bit contested because wasn't Penny 16 in the movie?
Their time skip wasn't as big as this one was, where King of the Hill is like a decade plus into its story after the last season finale and such, where we finally get Hank and Peggy, who have been in Saudi Arabia working for a large company over there because, Hank is going to work in propane accessories no matter where it is. And they've come back basically to a entirely new Arlen, and they now struggle with the up-to-date cultural elements and societal commentary that, jumping ahead 13 plus years or so, or even more now, because Bobby Hill is now a young adult. I think he said he was like 21.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot changes during that time period, especially the fact that they, instead of doing something like tangentially, like progressing the years of the show, like in the show's world, they just skip all of it and basically rush through it within the new opening, which is still pretty much the same opening, just, new elements and background details. And I will say, even though the people who are working on the current Futurama revival series are super talented, and I hope that they are being treated well because of, the whole thing going on with the animation industry, I think King of the Hill, out of the 2 Fox adjacent animated sitcoms that have been revived on to Hulu, King of the Hill is by far and away it is the superior of the 2 revivals. I think there's a bit of a bummer saying that because, one, of course, obviously nobody's actually like truly competing against one another when creating movies and shows. All these teams are always looking out for each other and hoping the best for one another. But where Futurama feels stuck they've stagnated, even though they've made a few story details that have progressed the characters a little bit, it still feels like it's stuck in the same place as it was. And barring the whole time travel, time stopping nonsense from the previous series finale.
Mm.
Here, what I really love about this show is the fact that they do progress forward in time. This isn't a show that is stuck in the same time period because, oh, that's when this version of the characters are at their most iconic. I get it. I understand why they would do that, especially with companies like Illumination, and why the director had to say, like, said, we're not going to age the characters up, and then had to walk that back after pushback saying, like, hey, you know what? Maybe we will. Here, it was the smartest decision made was to progress the story forward.
As someone who's not really as big a fan of the show as perhaps you and my jukebox co-host Nick, I still found a lot to enjoy about this season as a whole. Like, it honestly feels updated for the streaming audience, but also has like the same spirit of the original.
That's a thing. A lot of revivals sometimes just do not get that notion of like why the original was good. Since these are the same creators, basically, the only thing that has changed is pretty much the age of the characters. Everyone's older, and I love that they also updated the designs. Like, the best thing about King of the Hill was the fact that outside of Family Guy, The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, and such, King of the Hill was extremely grounded compared to most adult animated sitcoms. There were a few episodes and moments where you can say, oh, well, that's absurd. These stories felt real, and the characters felt so. You've probably known half of these characters throughout your life at one point or another, especially with me, since I've grown up in Texas for most of my life.
I was going to ask, like, is that one of the reasons why you've taken such a liking to the show?
Well, one, yes. It's also why I like Gentry Chow versus the Underworld, because it's like we get so few shows that are based in Texas where Texas isn't the butt of the joke. And like the best part, and I will agree with Kate Sanchez from But Why Though on this, King of the Hill back then and even now captures the beauty and the flaws of its own state. Like, yes, we are unfortunately full of really terrible politicians who do not like their own people. And we are unfortunately the home to a bunch of mediocre white men comedians that somehow got popular. Oh, the irony of them complaining about Texas heat. And when they are the same people who are always going to like Twitch react to say, like, well, if you don't like it, don't live here. And it's like, well, if you don't like it, don't live here. Especially with the fact that one of the episodes is basically making fun of those like macho manosphere dude bro comedians,
Oh, yes.
which have sadly taken over comedy, which, shout out to Bill Burr and Mark Maron for pointing this out, and how some of these people like Rogan are trying to clean their image by saying, wow, man, what's going on in the world is messed up. And it's like, you are part of the problem. You do not get to have a redemption arc. Anyway, that's the appeal of this show. It is full of genuinely nice and kind people here in Texas, but there's also bad people here. It's not like how some sitcoms where they place themselves in like in some state where the thematic social commentary will make sense, but they play up with everyone else being like lesser than our main cast of characters, like Parks and Rec and such. Like, I love that show. It works for its small town political commentary, but it's also like you don't have characters outside of the main cast. You have caricatures. King of the Hill has characters. And on top of that, like, take, the thing that makes King of the Hill also so good within its voice cast, which, yes, we will talk about some of the changes. We can't really escape the topic of this one with this show, is the fact that, like, a lot of the times when King of the Hill got a celebrity actor or guest, they wouldn't do like the basic Simpsons or Family Guy thing where they would just have them come in, play themselves, and maybe begrudgingly accept the jokes that are written about them and such. Here in King of the Hill, these celebrities are just playing characters. You're getting to be someone else. Now, granted, sometimes, like with the Proud Family series, it was very interesting to see who they would pick as a celebrity voice with a character, or when they actually did get celebrities to voice themselves. Like in the previous show of King of the Hill, Hank is apparently like related to cousin wise to ZZ Tops. But you know, it's like how Brittany Murphy, Tom Petty, and like Matthew McConaughey and Brad Pitt would be in different episodes of the show, but they wouldn't play themselves. If that makes sense.
That's something I honestly really respect about this show is it really did put the focus on the characters and the crazy situations that they find themselves in. And by crazy, I mean Dale level crazy.
Yeah, so let's talk about the character changes and such. Bobby is now a owner chef at Robota Chain, where it's a mixture of German, Japanese cuisines with Texas flavor. Essentially, if you come to Austin, we have a place called Kumuri Tatsuya, which is basically Japanese cuisine mixed with Texas style barbecue. And it's my favorite place to go. Definitely
Nice.
go there if you are ever in Austin and need like a party or like a group of friends want to go out and have something fun and fancy. And instead of going to college, it's just interesting. And I'm sure with season 2 or part 2 of this season 14, we will find out how exactly Bobby made a deal with Chain Wasanasong as business partners and such, because boy howdy, if Chain was a douchebag from the original, but kind of likable and himbo-y because he's, you know, a rich kid who doesn't know any better, they doubled down. Chain might be the most despicable character of these first 10 episodes so far. And that's saying something with what Bill does in one episode.
Oh, the Bill episode is. I understand partly from his perspective, but it also gets into pretty uncomfortable territory.
I mean, like, that's the thing. Again, what's great about King of the Hill is these characters are flawed, but they're also like likable and there's like a sympathy to them, even though in reality, I probably would have kicked Bill's ass for the lies he pulled. But I will say Stephen Root is still great as usual as Bill and some of the other characters from this show. Where Bill, when Peggy and Hank left, went into a deep depression while also getting COVID and staying housebound and whatever because of COVID and depression.
He basically like was bedridden for however long they were gone.
I do love that joke where he's like, I finished all of Netflix, Hank. Did you know when you reach the end of Netflix, they send you a wellness check? Which, by the way, I don't know how you reach the end of Netflix. I think that thing is a bottomless pit of media. So,
Exactly.
especially with how much comes out every week. But anyway, Boomhauer has a girlfriend and he's become like the parental father figure of this girlfriend's son, who, again, we haven't really seen the girlfriend yet. I mean, we technically see her in the opening, but we haven't seen her. you know?
Yeah.
And the one who has unfortunately changed for, well, first of all, before I say anything else, seeing Boomhauer hug Hank is like one of the most wholesome things that I can think of for King of the Hill.
Yeah, that was nice.
Even though Hank is still like, whoa, a hug. Okay, then, let go. The unfortunate thing is that because of the time period and what has happened, oh boy, almost these last 10 years now, because of a certain someone getting into the Oval Office not once but twice, and then the pandemic, Dale has gone full fringe, like paranoia conspiracy theorist. Though it is funny that even when he won to be the mayor of Arlen on a literal anti-mask campaign of literally not just against the pandemic, but anti-mask tear gas and anti-mask baseball. And somehow he still won. And unfortunately, you see the Boomhauer and who's the new character played by Keith David?
The new tenant who's been living in Mr. Robertson, Brian Robertson.
Right. And they were like, he's the devil that you know. And then Boomhauer was like, well, I joke voted for him. And it's just like, oh God. And when the Hills come back, they're at the very least Hank so far is the only one who's really perturbed by all these changes to society and such. Until probably one of the best moments of any King of the Hill episode happens where they're going to the Megalomart and they see, because like they're so mad at all the changes and progress that has hit Arlen, even though it is funny hearing Hank go, what kind of food is poke? It's like, it's poke, Hank. But considering how what we hear about his take on Obama being born in Hawaii, yeah, maybe Hank's not the biggest fan of Hawaiian cuisine. Anyway, they go up to this stand where there's a bunch of Girl Scouts, and they say like, yeah, we do have all the cookies, and we do have vegan, and they're only like $5, but the vegan ones are $6. And Hank was like, well, do you have Samoans? And they're like, no, we don't have Samoans. Oh, wait, yes, we do. We call them caramel dandies. It's just more respectful to the folks, like Samoan people. And it's like, that's nice. And then there's like, it's good to be nice. And how even though there's flawed people in a flawed society, in a flawed city, there's still kind people. There's still a community there that is willing to be kind to one another. Even if in one episode, Peggy and the neighbors accidentally, unintentionally do a book burning.
I cannot believe they got away with that joke.
It's like, if they only knew the context, they weren't doing it because they hate literature and education. They did it because everyone was getting goddamn bed bugs. Probably one of the darkest jokes of the new season and such. But what's also nice is that even though these characters have been gone for years and such, they still find new ways to keep them the same, but progress them into still being hugely entertaining individuals. Like, Hank is stubborn, but mostly because it's a culture shock, because he was in Saudi Arabia in like an artificial US town for his stay there. So he's been like stuck in the past, only to then get a sudden awakening of how fast the world has progressed around them. But he's not like a old crotchety conservative Republican and such.
Yeah, it's not like he became his father.
No. Like, granted, I do wish the show still kept it nebulous about who he voted for back when this was either the first or second election of George Bush Jr. And like the whole thing of the episode was that Hank was like, well, he wasn't going to vote for Bush, not because of his politics or what he was going to do to the economy and screw over everything. He did not like his handshake. Because what makes Hank Hill a compelling older adult character is not that he's an unlikable asshole. He's flawed, but he cares more about someone's character more than how progressive or conservative they are. He's not a centrist. Again, his excitement with going to that George Bush museum kind of shows you that he's like on the side of right, but he's not a nut job.
Yeah, he's like, I know for younger people, like Gen Z or below, they probably have the most extreme perspective of Republicans, but when we were growing up, they were just kind of regular old conservatives. They weren't MAGA.
Well, they don't really touch upon some of that. They do still touch upon the fact that a lot of people have unfortunately taken in more conspiratorial theories and news sources, especially since Dale has shown to be one of the front runners of that whole thing. Unfortunately, in Arlen, especially when he's like, you can read it on my Substack, and how many people at that museum are like, oh, I want to subscribe. And it's like, oh. I just feel like, oh, what's his name? The museum tour guide played by, oh, what's his name? He was Kenneth from 30 Rock. Oh, Jack McBrayer.
Yeah.
Being like, we get one of these at least once a day. Oh, man. Like, the typecasting is so on the nose, but it's also, like, perfect.
By the way, what do you think of Toby Huss's take on Dale? Because I thought he was pretty spot on.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Because, time has passed, and life and death wait for no man. Some of the actors have passed away, so there's a reason why we haven't seen anything of Luann and Lucky yet, because Brittany Murphy and Tom Petty have died. But Dale's original voice actor also passed away like a few years ago. Oddly enough, he would come into the store I worked at like multiple times, and I would see him, but I never knew that was actually him.
Oh, nice.
It's wild to think about. But I thought Toby Huss is good. And I know his voice is not as nasally as the other guy, but I think he brings the same cadence and mannerisms of Dale to his performance. And Toby Huss is also not doing the con anymore, where we got Ronnie Chang.
Yep.
Who I think also does a really good job. I love his performance. And I think he's a super funny comedic actor. I think everyone should be hiring him. He's great. And I think the voices are all good. And it was a little sad, though, like right before this show was ready to come out, John Redcorn's voice actor was brutally murdered by a hateful bigot. This will probably be some of the last episodes we'll hear him in. And even though, like, it's funny how they progressed John Redcorn as a character. He and Nancy Gribble are now real estate agents with their own little, like, real estate reality show on YouTube. Which I do love the callback to the fact that Nancy and John Redcorn were having a tumultuous, decade-long running affair. Where one of the comments in the YouTube video is like, Redcorn's hitting that, right? And I love the scene in the 10th episode where John Redcorn brings the guys, John's Redcorn, like, what do you call it? John's Redcorn corn or something like that?
John Redcorn's Red Corn.
And Dale was like continuously oblivious. Again, the MAGA manosphere conspiratorial theorist guy still cannot put two and two together. And it's even funnier that his son, Joseph, is not aware of that at all either. It's been 13 plus years, Joseph. How have you not put two and two together? Especially that scene during the third episode where he's like, yeah, I'm the only white guy on my team. And before Bobby's basically second hand at the restaurant's about to say something, Bobby's like, no, don't. Like, there are some, yeah, I mean, I agree with Johnny Tucello that some of the jokes so far feel very, like, oh, they had to put them in there. But the punchlines so far are so funny. And they're not even based on absurdist gags or situations. It's just character interactions. Like, I think the second hand in the restaurant is Emilio.
Yeah, Emilio.
Who is probably the best new character of the show. He's not only like a mentor to Bobby, but like, you know, his angel like on his shoulder and such. I still love that scene where, well, there are two great scenes I love. One, the takedown of Mel Blanc, even though it's like, it is funny to hear him say like, this just sounds like a white guy taking a bunch of jobs from Mexicans and farm animals. And then when they have the rat problem, Bobby's just like, take care of it, Emilio. I'll go outside and talk to Chain and his dad. You just get rid of the rat. You got it. And don't shoot it. And he puts the gun away quickly. And like Pamela Adlon is so good at Bobby. And I love that they kept Bobby, like they progressed his character. He didn't regress or stagnate or anything. He was always a flawed, maybe more emotionally driven, slightly heavier set individual. Probably more like my body type in a way. But he always had charm. He was always a ladies' man. Like, I rewatched this show recently. Like, Bobby could hook up.
Good for him.
Yeah, like, good for freaking him. Like, having that charisma and not falling into the manosphere nonsense. Like, social media kind of forces a lot of young men to do if they are terminally online. So,
more on that in a second, but I do want to talk about one of my favorite Dale episodes, which is really more of a Hank episode, the new ref in town, where Hank becomes a soccer referee.
Yeah.
And he's trying to keep it secret from his friends, but eventually it gets out. But then Dale gets involved, and he's got to get creative to outsmart him.
Exactly. I love that episode plot. The moment where they're all talking badly about soccer and they're like, man, what they'll let kids do in the alleys these days. And it's just Boomhauer's son kicking the soccer ball. And they're all bad mouthing soccer. And then Bill does his whole tirade, which again, Stephen Root's comedic timing hasn't aged a bit. It's like, what we gonna do next? Measure our milk in liters? Instead of eating donuts, they make us eat scones. And then shortly after is like, I've quickly turned around on scones. And well, Hank is like, it could be like that. And then he throws out a famous soccer player's name. And the consecutive head turn that Hank's three friends give him, it's like he said something extremely damning and inflammatory. Just that look of, they're like, the fuck you just say? Oh gosh. And it's like, yeah, well, it's funny because I would say at least in Austin, soccer was not as big in Texas until relatively within the decade or so, maybe like later 2010s to now. It's just amusing how, like, where that plot goes and such. Or the most unhinged Dale and Joseph moment from the second episode where Hank and Bobby compete against one another in a beer brewing competition.
Oh, yeah.
Where they try to kidnap the dogs or the judge of the beer competition and they flake out. But Joseph does the most, like Johnny Tucello says, most pocket sand thing a Gribble could do, and pulls out a trash bag, leaps into it rolls over next to the trash and camouflages himself perfectly next to it. It's like someone, like whoever came up with that joke, kudos. That is probably the loudest I've ever laughed in this new season. Like I said, this new season is so funny. I haven't laughed this hard in a while with a new show or like a revival show. Like I said, I like some of the plot ideas with the newer Futuramas, but I don't need to see another Will Fry and Leela stay together episode, or let's dump on Fry's tragic history again, or oh look, Bender's having another identity crisis. That's why I say this show, like the new Futurama episodes, stagnate for me a little. No matter what progress they make, it's still stuck in the same place. Where King of the Hill, things have changed, especially when you find out that Khan and Min have gotten a divorce.
Divorce lasted for like 2 years, but they're still playing it up like they're the happy married couple for 30 years.
And it's like, no, man. Just because they want to feel superior, which, again, is perfectly aligned with how their characters were in the past. Even though I kind of wish they were a little less dickish towards Hank Hill and his friends, because there are so many moments where the Hills and everyone else were on the side, Super Nuisance phones, when now it's like, why are you guys still like this? But I understand you have to like ease everyone back in and such. And I like that they also do a few interesting things with the characters. Like Bobby goes through one-off romantic relationship, dates a environmentalist vegan, which those were probably the weakest jokes. You know, his girlfriend is vegan. It's like, can't you just put a bunch of grass trimmings in a bowl and she'll eat it? And it's like, okay, Hank, even you, Mister, I've eaten nothing but hummus for the past like decade or so. No, veganism is not just, you eat the grass.
Yeah, that was probably my least favorite joke.
Like there are a few like that, like the Nepo baby comment and so on, but there are so many good jokes in this season that it doesn't really bother me as much as it would otherwise. Like nobody's going to remember the bad jokes of this season, but they'll remember Joseph saying, "I'm the only white guy in my construction crew." Or how the Dallas football training camp, and when you find out what exactly happened and why the environmentalist vegan girlfriend is there. And I love that you finally get to see like the manager of the Dallas Cowboys walk into his office and he just picks up the phone. Like
It
there's no
happened
like
again.
But the show also doesn't miss on its emotional beats. Like I said, the first episode had that, and the second episode has a great one where Bobby's like, "Yeah, we all make our beer with hops, but our hops fell from the same tree." And it's like, that's so genuine. I love that. Like, there's no real angst and bitterness towards Bobby and Hank this time around. I mean, there are conflicting differences, which fine, that you need that. That's the whole core of the show of Hank accepting and learning to adapt in this new time period. But they seem to be on like a better wavelength and such, which is nice. And it's funny because the episode where Bill is probably does one of the most despicable things ever still ends on an entirely sweet and sincere note, even with everything around it.
I think that's what I like about Bill's character in general is he will do some pretty heinous stuff, but there's always like a hint of sympathy in how it's portrayed. The guy is clearly suffering from anxiety and depression. And the show doesn't like judge him for it. His character is presented in a very matter-of-fact way.
Exactly. Like, so basically what happens is that Bill has reconnected with some friends that everyone thought were fake, but they turn out not to be fake. And then, like, with what happens is that Bill connected with a group of barber friends that Robert connected him with through one of the barbers being Robert's cousin. And Bill, unfortunately, gained the support and energy to gain his self-esteem by lying about being married to Peggy, and Hank being the depressive, pathetic, divorced weirdo that Bill really is. And instead of fixing the problem, Bill just digs a deeper hole by saying, "Oh, don't worry, Peggy's not in the picture anymore. Good. She died." And it's like, Bill. They even make fun of that fact when Peggy's about to go over and basically ruin the entire funeral until she hears Bill give off this amazing, heartfelt speech about who Peggy Hill is as a person. Because throughout this whole episode, Peggy has been struggling alongside Hank about what to do when you are retired. Like, who are you as a person when you are not defined by your work? Even though in any other episode, Bill would have absolutely given up the ghost and said, like, "I'm sorry, I lied, everyone." And, but here it's like, it's very sweet with what he has to say about Peggy, even though the Peggy Bill dynamic has always been flawed, which, again, the best part about the show. Everyone's flawed, but there's an identity and personality and depth to each of the characters. Even though it, yeah, still like seems like Boomhauer gets the least amount, even though it's like after the whole Texas Ranger reveal at the end of the last season, I want to see what they'll do more with Boomhauer. And they do a little, but it's arguably like he's the least developed of the original cast.
Yeah, it just is what it is. Maybe it's just because the other characters are just a little bit more overflowing personality. Like that's the reason why Dale gets like at least 3 or 4 standout episodes.
Or just like standout subplots or something, like the whole rat in the restaurant moment.
Yes.
Where Emilio is like, "Well, unless you can get a cheap exterminator out here, I'd have to wait until tomorrow." And of course, Dale's the one they call. And then Dale mistakes what's the word? Like gratis?
He thinks gratis means like a discount and not just free.
No wonder why I haven't gotten paid the last few jobs. Again, the most conspiratorial member, like friend of the group, and yet, like, is unintelligent in so many other ways. But I do like that some of the worries that a lot of fans have were swept under the rug or like pushed out of the way quickly. Like Nancy and John Redcorn are not back together. They are co-workers and partners in the real estate scheme, but they're not, making out and having an affair behind Dale Gribble's back. I just love this show, like this new season. I'm not trying to wrap up things. It's just, there's so much to talk about and how it tackles themes of like polyamorous relationships, cultural appropriation, and that again, a great punchline of when Bobby's talking with these German food club members and how they're saying like, your restaurant's a bit sus. Why should we let you keep doing this? On top of Bobby having issues trying to find proper Japanese charcoal to make his dishes. And one of the guys goes, "Wait a minute, are you related to Cotton Hill?" He's like, "He's my grandfather." "Well, yeah, well, he killed mine back in World War II. So he's one of the 50 men." Because that was Cotton's whole thing was, he was short, angry at the world, and lest you forget it, "I killed 50 men." Well, of course, obviously, Cotton Hill is not going to be a major part of this show anymore because, his character is dead. Not that his voice actor's dead. Toby Huss is, everywhere on this show,
Yep.
along with Stephen Root. But we do get to see one Cotton Hill appearance when we also get to see Good Hank, which is Hank's
half brother.
Yeah, half brother, and then his other half brother in Japan for a small moment, which again, it just reminds me of the fact that there are extremely intense debates in Japan whether the original English King of the Hill is better than the Japanese King of the Hill dub cast. Isn't that wild? I never think about something like that happening. Of course, here in America, we have dub versus sub debates all the time, and they get tiring and shitty really quick. But there's something so jovial and fun about the fact that in Japan, there are people going, no, man, the English cast for King of the Hill is the best.
That's wild.
And some people will be like, fuck you, the Japanese dub cast are better. And it's just like, huh. Just makes you want to go, yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. But I think one of the most effective episodes of the season is when Hank is back with his two half brothers. Mostly Good Hank, where this time Good Hank is, I think, voiced by what's the kid's name? He's from Stranger Things, among other shows and movies and such. The one who's like in the new Ghostbusters movies and such.
Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, he plays Good Hank. And unfortunately, because this is a real problem and it is continuously happening, and sadly, it seems like a lot of parents and governors, and especially YouTube and social media companies, because they love having these dipshits online, falls into a Andrew Tate style manosphere boot camp. Hank misunderstands it as a means of like, oh, so it's like, you get to learn proper values and such. And it's too late until they're like halfway through the camp where Hank is like, wait a minute, you guys are being taught how to be misogynist incel assholes. And I love how they deal with that, because it is like Hank had to deal with that kind of stuff when Cotton was around, because Cotton was an extremely toxic father. There are very few moments where Cotton Hill was actually a good parent figure to anyone in the show, because he was just a spiteful, angry man. And to see how Hank is like, you gotta learn about chivalry, and how, like, seriously, so many men out there do not, and I mean do not, blame everything because you couldn't hook up with a woman. One, you are not entitled to a girlfriend or relationship. If they want to be just friends, you respect that shit.
Mm-hmm.
It is not that complicated. And I love how Hank basically goes to the one person he knows who can dig up the dirt on him by going to Dale. And Dale being like, don't worry, Hank, you'll finally find out what's actually going on with Peggy. And it's like, God damn it, Dale. No. And then, of course, the whole sham, like this meathead Andrew Tate looking scum of the earth is like, yo, man, you don't want to work under a beta or a woman. You got to start your own business. And it's like, well, how did you start your own business? How did you start this? You didn't start it. You got an investment from your mom, who technically owns it. And then all the men in that group realize, like, wait a minute, maybe we're the assholes on this. It's not like a joke gag Reddit thread of, am I the asshole? It's like, no, wait a minute, we're the jerks.
I think this is one of those episodes for younger audiences, people who are Good Hank's age. They need to watch this and take some serious notes.
Because, like, at the end of it, it's a good thing that Cotton Hill did not live long enough to see Good Hank become this weird macho guy, because, like, macho manosphere nonsense guy, because You know, Cotton Hill would be all about this. That's the problem. That's the thing about the older generation and this unfortunate generation of male influencers who are like, yo, you gotta be buff and strong and make a ton of money and don't respect anyone, especially women. They don't deserve it. And it's like, why would anyone listen to this? And then yet you find so many young men and unfortunately men around our ages still fall for it. It's sad. But it ends on a good note of Hank pushing good Hank into the direction of being a better person, which is like what needed to happen. It was the right ending because that's what needs to happen these days. Young men, boys, teens need to not listen to those losers online. They need to have a good inspiration and support system. Like sometimes, yeah, maybe you don't have it, but don't just fall back into manosphere stuff.
Exactly.
Like that's what is so good about this show so far. There are so many good moral lessons and just like commentary overall. Like the constant pressure of the super phones wanting their daughter Connie to hook up a chain with Song because it's not romantic. It's a status symbol, which yeah, your kids are going to regret loving you and being on this earth because you don't see them as their own individual person with wants and needs of their own. Like that's why that episode is so good when the whole sham of Han's marriage is exposed
Again, thanks,
because
Dale.
it's a mix of Dale, Hank, and then Dale's camera capturing Connie and Bobby talking, where everything is revealed, which is just I love that. Like, wait, why is everybody looking at us, and why are we on the screen? Like, oh, oh no. Or that whole scene where Bill finally gets into the party and it's all over, everyone's left and such, where Bill tries to steal some food and he sees Con and he's like, oh my god, Con, I'm sorry. Then Con's just like, yeah, forget it, Bill. Like, it's over. Like, me and the wife are divorced. At least the worst part's over. And Bill's just like, oh no, Con. The worst is far from over. Again, bangers on bangers on bangers, especially this episode with the Joseph is a weirdo, and I love it. And that's like the perfect evolution of his character, where it's just like, don't eat all the food, don't grind on the hot cougars. Why am I even here? They found so many ways for this show to still have this complexity, this nuance, this realness to it that you just don't get with a lot of adult animated shows because a lot of them focus more on jokes, which is fine as long as the jokes are funny. If there's nothing to the foundation of the jokes, then after a while, it's like, who cares what happens? And even though some shows, like It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, take the sitcom format and flip it onto its head by making its main cast the most despicable people on the earth, it's still funny to people. Even though I still kind of feel like it's ran its course by now. But the fact that they still have huge viewer base and fans means they're doing something right with that humor.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always liked King of the Hill more than other shows, is where it has jokes, it has flaws, its characters are not perfect, but their imperfect nature is what makes them great characters. I think the only real legit issue I have is I wish there was more Con in this season, and I wish, man, you're telling me you got one of the coolest people on earth, Keith David, and he has barely anything to do in this first season outside of be like the exposition train.
Yeah, like Keith David is such a good voice actor that it's a shame that his character, Brian Roberts, is only around for like bits and pieces at a time.
And like he can be funny. There are a few funny moments, but it just seems like they wasted his character when I want to know more about him. And like it's obvious he's married. He has like a child. I want to know what it was like, how he like did he meet the Hills before the Hills left, or what's going on here? Like I want to know more of his story. And obviously, we still have plenty of episodes and such. And I will say, I knew it was going to happen. I knew it. It was just a matter of time. If you know anything about Texas and just bizarre news from our state, you know about the wild hogs. Oh gosh. I was like, well, it was bound to happen. We have a wild infestation of hogs. And then if you don't remember the news stories about that and how absurd it all was, uh yeah.
Would you say this episode is the most topical of the season?
I would say the most topical episode is the Manosphere one, just because it's such a current environmental thing. And even though King of the Hill has never been about its politics, like, or been focused on political, like, stories, even though there are episodes in the previous show where, again, Hank Hill struggles to deal with maybe or maybe not voting for George Bush because of a weak handshake, or when Dale finally he finds out that wait a minute, this detail about the Kennedy assassination doesn't make sense. And then he realizes that maybe everything does happen and there's no shadow corporation or government controlling everything. I think the most topical, like I said, is the Manosphere episode. And then I think that's really it. I think like if it had to be if anything else was that topical, I think the cultural appropriation episode maybe.
Yeah.
But outside of that, the shows are very self-contained stories and such. I wouldn't say there's like one episode where it's like, well, this will date it to here because they basically skipped over the pandemic stuff. And we know Hank isn't going to vote for our current president now. And who knows if they'll do anything to touch upon that, which I could see it, but also the fact that King of the Hill is great because, and I wouldn't say King of the Hill is an apolitical show. It's more like it pokes fun at both sides, but still offers like a solution of how to make the problem or situation at hand better. What I'm saying is they're not doing what South Park is doing, where they're saying, fine, the Paramount merger's going to happen. Okay, it's official. Let's scorch earth this motherfucker. Which they have been doing a wonderful job. Even if I still have a few, like, they could have done better with some jokes and such, but still.
I think it's just the sentiment of what South Park is doing that I'm totally behind. But
like I said, King of the Hill was never fully about its politics, but they have political commentary all the time. It's just not directly topical. So we'll see if that changes or if they'll do stuff like talk about NFTs or crypto, which I hope they don't. Like, the appeal of King of the Hill, again, is its down to earth, slice of life nature. And I'm sure they'll say some references to the NFT cryptocurrency craze and then, of course, generative AI and such. But really, that's not the focus of the show. The show is all about Hank and Peggy struggling to find a means of purpose through a suddenly very different world that they were in previously in Arlen. And now it's different. And now it's like, how do we adapt, evolve, and handle this new life of ours? The voice acting has pretty much aged like fine wine. I love Mike Judge as Hank. Like, all the characters sound appropriately older, though Peggy still sounds the same.
Peggy is just Peggy.
Yeah, and maybe I would say I wish her ego and aggro, like, cocky confidence was toned down again, because it's sometimes it turns into a little bit of a caricature of her when there was so much more to her than just being like the one of the best characters of the show, but also one of the most obnoxious characters of the show. Like I said, all the characters are flawed, but there's like compelling reasons for it. They actually dive into why they are flawed and then show how they can grow and improve. And that's what this show is great at. And that's why this new season is so good. It changed, it grew. And whether they decide to bring back Luann and Lucky, I don't think they will because that means casting new actors and then explaining to everyone where the hell they went. I think it's fine. Like, I honestly, I was more surprised that they brought back Buck Strickland for an episode because I was wondering, why did Hank move to Saudi Arabia? Was it a Buck Strickland situation? Because Buck was always like the worst person in a room, but also had Hank's back a good handful of times.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually a great question.
Like, I'm sure we're going to get that because I feel like you see Buck Strickland again, but there's no like animosity towards him and Hank. So something must have happened. What happened? And I'd like to see an episode about that. And who knows, maybe there will be an episode about it, but we'll just have to see with the next season, which we'll probably see probably next year. So,
Yeah.
but otherwise, what a great adult show. Like, what a great return. What a great revival. Just something that hits the notes at all points. I wouldn't even say there was like an episode that subjectively missed for me. Maybe the Bill lying about being married to Peggy thing could have and probably should have ended with the lie being revealed. Though it is funny to see Peggy walking away and then one of the guys being like, oh my God. We'll have to see what happens there or if we see those characters again. I would like to see them again or if like Bill starts working there or something. So I want to see more of this. I am very excited about this because, again, and I'm sorry to bring up Futurama again, but like with the announcement of the new season of Futurama, I'm just kind of like, okay, it's more or less the same. Nothing's going to change for better or for worse. It's going to end on a possible series finale just in case they get canceled again. Okay.
At this point, I'm worried that Futurama is just it's going to outlive all of us.
Well, the problem is with Futurama and is the fact that when it originally came out, science and like technology weren't going at such a rapid fire pace. Like you could actually chill and enjoy a bi-yearly or yearly phone release or a new computer or or gaming console and such. It has never been so streamlined. And like you could have like the mystery of what the future has for us. Now it's just kind of like Futurama is now stuck in the present, trying to figure out what the future is going to be.
The only fantasy part of it is like the more high concept science fiction stuff, but not so much the in the future.
Exactly. Again, that's why King of the Hill was so good. It focuses on the kind of stories that the creators want to talk about. And I really just do want to somehow talk to Mike Judge about this show. If you haven't heard about his inspiration for Hank Hill, like on the Howie Mandel podcast, it is so delightful to see him virtually slip into Hank Hill like it was nothing. And to talk about how these characters are great because they're based off of real people, not because of like what's a quirky kind of character, which is something that kind of stained Seth MacFarlane's shows for a little bit, especially with like the Cleveland show. It's like, oh, let's have a talking bear neighbor. Okay, whatever. Here it's just like you look at the characters that appear in King of the Hill and the stories that they tell, and even if some of it might be a little absurd, it's like, no, I get this episode. I connect with it. It's like there's a reason why King of the Hill was like the king of the adult animated sitcom. because I mean, on top of others like maybe newer age Simpsons and Bob's Burgers, because like they have universal stories, but they're told in a way where you can connect with them without feeling so like alienated because it's like, oh, this is just a joke focused episode, whatever. Okay. I mean, I don't know who has yet to watch these new episodes, but please do. Like, highly recommend it.
Coming from someone who's more of a casual fan, season 14, I would give 5 bananas.
Well, don't you know, Mike? 5 should be rare in this world. Oh gosh. I don't mean to brag, but I've been told that I'm been consistently a 5. It's like, oh, Peggy. Depending on the context, Peggy, a 5 is not the rating you think it is. So that will be it for this episode. Like, man, I just like talking about good stuff. I've said this before, but I love when we can just sit down and talk about a good show, reflect on it, and go in depth with it a little more than we usually do with a show that we don't tend to care for or whatever. So next time we will be talking about Genndy Tartakovsky and Sony Pictures' raunchy adult 2D animated feature that people better support, Fixed. So let's just say we're getting fixed on Fixed.
Yeah, I'm very curious how both of us will respond to that. But until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Blue Sky at camseyeview.biz. I have my own website with the same name, camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also am a contributor to Media Magpies, your new one-stop shop for pop culture and media criticism and discourse. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterbox.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Blue Sky at Renegade Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You can escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.